the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
We're on one of the real high points of High Ash Farm. I can see the Tackleston TV mast virtually standing proud in the distance down to the south, and we've got a view of Norwich as well and some of the landmarks, and you can hear the wind at this level really whistling through the hedgerow and through the trees. And with the hot temperatures, 80 plus, nearly up to 90 over the last few days, Chris, this wind is as bad an enemy as the heat.
Yes, Matthew, it's caused us a huge problem here at the farm. We've got around about 100 acres of what we call pollen-and-nectar fields here at the farm. It just looks like a normal hay crop, but it's allowed to flower, no chemicals used on it, and it's the pride and joy of the farm here, attracting insects and small mammals and also the predators that feed on them all. And during the week, towards the beginning of this week, I drove past one of the areas which is called Successional Woodland, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's been established about 20 years now, 2006, and it's stunning in there, and lots of grass in the base of it. And as I drove past with Rat in the truck, I caught a smell of bacon or sausages, and I walked in and there was a group of people with one of the takeaway barbecues right in the middle of this area of woodland. My heart sank, so I had to have words with them. I got sworn at to start with, but then I said, I'm not leaving until you leave and take it with you, which is what they did, but they stamped it out and left it there, and then they disappeared. And you're so vulnerable because if you upset people, they can come back and drop a match, and of course half the farm would go. So I got into panic mode and brought the mower in, and we cut the standing remaining crop of the pollen and nectar fields. It had just about finished flowering. This was only cut the day before yesterday. We're standing in a huge block, about 80 acres here. And if I go down on my hands and knees, just down here, and gather it up, and you can hear it's absolutely tinder dry. It's made hay just as it hit the ground. The temperatures yesterday here at the farm were 33 degrees centigrade. We're on close to the second highest spot of the county here. We're around 70 metres above sea level, and the masts over there behind us, and as you mentioned, you can see the Tackleston mast over there, the transmitter, also on high ground. And this would have just gone like an inferno had somebody dropped a cigarette or just some other means of ignition. There's a footpath across the middle of this field. There's the main one that runs down the eastern side of High Ash Farm called Boudica Way. Anyway, this is now flat on the ground, and before this weekend is out, this will all be baled and carted, and it will go for animal bedding.
So you're reducing the risk, basically. The plants as they stood were much more of a risk in these conditions.
Absolutely, but it would not only take the crop, which is finished really flowering, it would damage all these lovely avenues of oak trees, and the hedge behind us is quite an ancient one, and one just the other side of that has been also planted in 2006. 26,000 hedging plants went in. We got a damp spring, and so they've taken really well, and the hedges last year got cut almost for the first time, and they're stunning, absolutely. So the yellowhammer population has increased, linnets have increased. These are all farmland species, and so with a lot of careful management you can halt and reverse the decline of wildlife. But sometimes when you have conditions like this, this wind is blowing. You can imagine if somebody dropped a match on the other side, the wind's blowing towards, that row of flames would come towards us. I mean, if I went back into the 1970s, I had the nickname in the village of Attila the Hun because I burnt all the straw after the combining, but it was done in a controlled way. And
that was the old stubble burning.
That's right.
Era.
And again, it became outdated. The law changed, and you're not allowed to do that. Quite rightly so. But nevertheless, this risk has now been reduced, and there's some advantage to it because although some of the plants in here are very wiry, this one's called knapweed, just finished flowering, so when Neil turns this, any seeds that are in the seed pods will all get knocked off, and you can see some of the grass seeds here. That's a seed head, and all the seed is on the ground, which is really good. So we've got some food on the ground. Now, because it's been cut a little bit earlier than we would normally do it, this has a chance, if we get some rain, of doing a second flowering in the autumn. So I might be able to bring you back here in October. It happens quite quickly with the perennial plants, but you can see what we call the stubble here is quite brittle. It's cut about 50 mil high, about 2 inches high, at great speed, and that's the advantage of the modern mowers. But this was very much a fire engine sort of prevention, if you like. It was, just to get quickly as possible to get it mown on the ground and baled up and removed, just because of the danger is so much in those hot conditions with the winds, and I'm just trying to avoid a disaster because it would go right across the farm. The heat produced from these fires when they get out of control is colossal. You wouldn't be able to get near it with any machinery. There's no chance of doing fire breaks because the ground here is baked. We're actually on clay up here, and any machines, so you'd have to use a bowser, and I have got one all ready to come out should we have a fire. It's got 10,000 litres of water in it, and then I've got a mobile one which I can discharge from the tractor on the move without getting out of the cab, and that holds 3,000 litres, and that's also ready at a moment's notice to get it up here or on any of the ignition. Oh, we've got a kestrel going over. I did say we got predators patrolling the fields right above us, and that's just roving round over our heads. Lovely sight. And we've had hobby here as well in the last day or two, as the swallows have been feeding over the insects as Neil was mowing, and hobby's been trying to capture the swallows and the house martin. Oh, another kestrel just coming in behind you. That's probably one of the parents with one of the youngsters.
They quite like these oak, don't
they
to
do.
Perch and have an eye on
and
things.
There's some dead branches in the oak down there, and they use those just as perches and watch out over the field, and anything that moves, as small as a beetle even, forms part of their diet, and then they just hover and drop down into the crop, which they'll be able to see their quarry much easier now. So they say every cloud has a silver lining, so this will all be in a bale and it'll go off the farm and be used for animal bedding and for cattle, for instance. And we're all ready, and if you look over in the field down in the valley there, the horse pastures down there are so dry, would you believe we're using this winter's hay already? Oh no, it's just enough to make you pull your hair out. Oh, there goes a hare, look, across the middle.
What a sight.
Running out into the middle.
So you can see them now. We wouldn't have been able to this time last week.
That's right. This was pretty much waist high here, and so it's gone out. But the other thing, the good news is, over in the distance there, we've got the overwinter wild bird seed mix, and we might visit that on the way to our next sort of port of call down at the bottom of the village. We might just visit there because I've mown a little sunflower walk in. It's summer holidays, got lots of mums wondering what to do with the children, and you can come out on High Ash and walk for free. We do like donations to pay for all the work that's done, but nevertheless you can come through the Teasel Walk right by the Bardfield. What have you seen?
I think that kestrel was having a go at the hare.
The kestrel is hungry, but I think Yeah.
That might be a bit too much to chew.
Tackling a hare for a small bird. And the kestrel is just hovering and down. There we go. Yes, so the hare, he nearly had a haircut then.
Yeah, went between his ears. Well, it is a wonderful sight up here,
It is,
and
yes.
and thankfully that smell of bacon
Yes.
could well have saved a whole lot of emergency
Yes, yeah,
services.
the wind was the right way, but if it had got going, it would then swept right through the southern half of the farm, and nothing could have stopped it. The fire brigade's so busy anyway, but it would be going at 10, 15 miles an hour. The winds up here, we seem to attract more wind because it's a high spot. Normally the wind's heading westwards. This morning it's coming from the west. The wind direction's changed, and we get something called land and sea breezes. So as the weather warms up more in central UK, the hot air rises and pulls it in off the sea, so you have these lovely land and sea breezes, we call them, and that's sometimes a help, sometimes a hindrance in the situation. Anyway, we've taken the bull by the horns. This has all been cut, baled for this weekend, so it'll then be much safer, and I'll be able to rest at night.
That's not to say that our thoughts and heartfelt wishes don't go out to all the people affected, particularly in France and Spain, by wildfires.
Yes, and that's what I'm trying to avoid here. They say there's an old motto: prevention is better than cure.
Wow, Chris, we've got a buzzard in the background there, but right close to us there on the hedge, we just saw almost like a missile.
It was. And the swallows and house martins feeding on this field, which we're just driving to, just scarpered, and it was literally, as you said, like a guided missile. So I'm going to introduce you to another new species we hadn't come across before. I did just mention it. It's a hobby. A very small, swift-like bird, with swept-back wings, and it is incredibly quick. So it went along, came through the oak trees to try to take these feeding swallows and house martins by surprise, and it was gone in a flash. And it's one of the adults, and we've got them nesting just off the farm at the top of Caister Lane in some woodland there, and they're visiting the farm sort of regularly every day to take a swallow or a couple of dragonflies back to feed the young. But it's so agile. Anyway, we're driving along one of the horse tracks here, and you can see my worry about the fire risk. The track, which normally is lovely mown green grass, is tinder dry and very short, and it's well used, and the teasels are now finished flowering. We're now coming up to this year's Teasel Walk. On our left,
We had a jogger running up the side of the field here. I'll be doing my 10-mile run later.
oh good, I'm pleased to hear that, yes. Dear, and lady getting her horse in.
Hi.
Morning. And off the field and give it a good groom and a feed, and so we can just drive up. We're now coming up to an area on the farm called Barnwood on our right, and we've often visited that, and we can pop in with the truck. The Teasel Walk is mown here, keep your arms in, and we'll just quickly drive up here. Little surprise for you.
Rat likes these adventures.
He
He's on Chris's
absolutely
lap.
does. Yes, he's sitting there being very well behaved. A little bit bumpy here, but this is wheelchair friendly, so you can actually bring a chair along here, and we're nearly there. Just round a couple of bends. The teasels on top of the hill on the clay here are incredibly
Oh, this
tall.
looks so developed now, this, doesn't it? The
absolutely
teasels
does.
have all grown up.
Yes, and the butterflies are still here. That was a painted lady we just went past, and so we're just going to hop out of the truck here, and maybe a little bit more, save your legs for your later 10k race, was it?
No, I don't run in kilometres, I run in miles.
Oh, right, okay. Right, I'll just be kind to you.
You want me to get out here?
You can't get out of the door, we've got teasels both sides.
Here we are.
There. Right, we can hop out.
Billing and cooing, the pigeons of High Ash Farm. Among the cast of characters that we meet each week.
And I'm the next character that you're likely to meet on the Countryside podcast. And we've got a small favour to ask. There are certain costs involved which we can't avoid. What we're asking for is a small contribution to help the running costs of this podcast.
And you can find all the details on the High Ash Farm website, and you can make a monthly or one-off payment. Everything's gratefully received, and let's keep this marvellous slice of wildlife podcasting going with Chris Skinner and the pigeons.
Why not? Yes, it's absolutely fantastic.
Sun's still beating down. Yesterday was in the mid-30s. Today...
Thank you.
Oh, you...
Can you come this side?
Yeah, I might be able to. Chris has invited me to the other side of the van, but I don't think I can get through these teasels. Hang on. Just... Oh, dear. Oh. What have you seen?
Got out, and right beside me, absolutely beautiful, was a hummingbird hawk-moth. On one of the teasel heads in full flower, and it's just flown away annoyingly. It was stunning. It was right in front of my face. Everybody, I'm standing in teasels which are about 6 to 7 foot tall, and they are rather vicious. So
You're going to pick your way out there?
I'm going to have to pick, as I said, get out carefully.
I think you've got to do the same this side as well.
Yes, yeah.
Because we're moving on to the field, which is on the passenger side of the van. Oh my God, these are vicious things, these. There we are. Oh, rat is
I've
just about made
lifted
it.
him out
Yeah.
so he can be safe. Anyway, just off the Teasel Walk is this is a 30-acre field, and it's in flower now. And so, although we've cut the pollen and nectar fields, there's ample flowers here of various species producing pollen and nectar. We're on clay, so they're all quite deep-rooted. And this is a really interesting plant. It's a pioneering species. It's called perennial sow thistle. And you can see the yellow flowers here, just about finished. And then the seed heads right on top of the plant. And in the next hour or two, the sun gets nice and hot. All the thistle species start, which is why they're called pioneering species, start to lose the plumes. You can see some thistle over there, creeping thistle. The head is just about to explode, and then individual little phyllo plumes, if you like to call them that, they're called pappus is the correct name, fly off and go in any direction depending on which way the wind is blowing. Here they are, and this will be today's seeding from the thistles. And this is one of the favourite plants of one of the birds which feed down here, which is the goldfinch. And the goldfinches love pulling the little teasel seeds out and then eating the tiny little seeds on the bottom here. And I've just pulled a chunk out with probably 100 seeds on it. And individually, as these heat up, they will then float off in the wind like that, depending on which way the wind is blowing, and they can go miles. And so it gets to about midday or just after, and there goes one by itself, look, all opened up like a hot air balloon. Not one I've let go, and it's just about warm enough now. We're right mid-morning.
This is very soft and downy, isn't
look
it?
There.
Oh, the butterfly.
Right beside us, painted lady. Perfect conditions. Look at that. Just a foot or so away. We were standing talking, and you get distracted, and displaying right in front, a perfect example, just eating some of the nectar in that thistle, creeping thistle, which is their food plant. They love it. Yes, so
all the way.
yes,
Thousands of miles in some cases.
Yes, they can come
Migratory.
from southern Europe. Yes, so I've cut this little walk into the field here, and it's nice. You can let the children go here, and they can go round in a big circle. And just coming into flower are the sunflowers, and there's tens of thousands on this field, mixed in with the cereals. That's a nice one. That's phacelia in flower, and then this one is flax linoleum. And the funny thing is, in 1949, the year I was born, this field was sown with flax, and my mum used to tell me about it. It was bright blue in the morning, and then the flowers would all drop off in the afternoon and the evening, and there'd be none left. So I used to walk across here and visit the field. The year I was born, 1949, it was in full flower, and then she had to retreat back to the farm. So beautiful. So
that would be harvested and sent off to a factory to be made in into people's kitchen floors.
Yeah, kitchen floors, and also linen. It's a family name, linoleum. Would make a high quality linen, and the flax was cut and sent to a little pit, a sort of storage area called a retting pit, about 6-7 miles from here, at a village called Renningham. And it was rotted down in water, and then all the fibrous part was loaded back onto a lorry and taken right the way across to Ireland, to Belfast, the main sort of headquarters of the linen industry right way back then, and made into high quality linen.
People remember in the high streets, Belfast linen.
Yes, of course, yes. And look here, the sunflowers just coming out into flower.
They're nice and early, these. That's a beauty.
Look at that one. That's 6 to 8 inches across, that one.
That's Vincent van Gogh territory.
Absolutely. That. So, yeah, I must be a multi-millionaire if 1 or 2 sunflowers is worth several million quid. I'm well in. So, anyway, it's going to be a cracking sight. So they're all facing one way, facing almost due east. So when we walk away and then you turn round and look back, and that's a nice plant as well for pollen and nectar just coming out. It's borage there. Lots of sunflowers to come up over the next couple of weeks, so they'll be in flower for all of August. So when you turn around, you start to get the impression of the numbers. Most of them still come into flower, and very attractive. So it's a little hidden sort of oasis there. So right next to the Teasel Walk, which is quite fierce actually. So I've got a few scratches to prove. But that hummingbird hawk-moth, also a migrant species coming up from Europe, and just stunning to see them. Right, I've got to get back in the truck because we're now going to do our next visit, which just involves a short drive, almost still on the farm, but just off the boundary by a stone's throw. So if we get back in the truck, we'll continue the podcast with me being scratched and you getting out and back in the truck in luxury.
Look at that, yes. You could always make your way from the passenger side to the driver's side.
I'm not as sort of manipulative as I used to be.
Agile, I think is the word.
Yeah, probably, yes.
Oh, right, well, let's do battle again with these wonderful teasels. Walking along a gravel path now, Rat's on his lead because we're close to quite a busy road, and we're just off the farm here, aren't we?
Yes, we're in a stone's throw from High Ash Farm.
Just over there.
Just on the other side of the road here, and this is quite an historic area. Well, the whole farm is. We've got 2 scheduled ancient monuments on High Ash Farm, and this is the Roman town, the Roman capital of Eastern Britain, It's called Venta Icenorum, literally the town of the Iceni. So the tribe that was living here when the Romans came in AD 43 were the Iceni, of which Boudica was the queen, and there was lots of sort of trouble going on here. And behind us is the parish church of Castus and Edmund there, and it's an unusual spot for it because it looks as though it's built bang on one of the Roman roads which exited the farm. So the main walled-in area is about 30 acres. It's right in front of us, and we're standing next to an avenue of trees on the church drive, and these were planted in 1953, coronation year. Two of the people that planted them, one was Mr. Jack Stockings and the other was Mr. Samuel Skinner, and between them they were church wardens at the time for the church.
Mr. Samuel Skinner was your father?
That's right, he certainly was.
And you were only about 3 years old at that time?
Yeah, I was. I can remember all the celebrations. I hadn't started school, but I can remember quite a bit, and I think us 3 children, I've got 2 sisters, and at the time, and we all got a mug each with the picture of the coronation and several other bits and pieces. Then at that time the farm was owned by the rector of the parish, the whole Caister Hall estate, including the land in front of us, which is the walled-in area for the town with all the streets there. If you go up on the A140 and look down on this, you can see all the road markings still. You can just see some through the dried grass, the street marks, which is all laid out in a grid fashion. The Romans were very well organised, and that sort of is quite a famous site here because it wasn't ever built on. A lot of the old Roman towns were built over, and this one's remained rather special, really. And after the death of the rector of the parish, the farm passed to his daughter, Edith Hawkins, and she sold quite a bit of the farm off in the early 1940s, and much later on she decided to retire to Jersey, and she came to see my father and asked him if he was interested in buying some of the land she still owned, part of which was the Roman town here. And my father, I can still remember the meeting, and said, well, you know what you should do with the camp, which is what my father called this. He'd farmed it in his youth. I've got a lovely picture of Sam, my father, down at the bottom corner of this field with 2 horses and a 2-furrow plough, and he was only 16 years old. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, Edith Hawkins left the whole of this area and some land either side of it to the nation. In fact, it passed in her will, it was left to the Norfolk Archaeological Society, and it's presently run and owned by the Norfolk Archaeological Trust. And as the only bit you'd know about it is this, between these 2 trees that my father and Jack Stockings planted, is this little plaque commemorating this wonderful bequest which Edith Hawkins left to the nation in 1993, and that's when it sort of became public access. And there's a little bit of sort of consternation in the village because the car park and the church here, if you visit it, certainly for the car park, which has been free for 25, 30 odd years now, you do have to pay to park here, so it's caused a bit of controversy. So it's not really very occupied, the car park.
Well, you've put the truck in there, so that's not going to attract a parking fine.
No, well, like they can do. If I was certainly at the car park at the other side there, I would get a ticket if I didn't pay, but I don't have a smartphone, so it is a little bit difficult, and it's caused lots of controversy in the village. Anyway, I'm going to take you to the churchyard here in front of us. Come on, Rat. He's on the lead here. He's been very well behaved.
We've got the Roman camp on our right here. As your father called it, the Roman camp. A lot
yes,
of people
he did.
call it that, don't they?
Yes.
It was actually a town.
Yes, it was. There were houses, and what we've discovered with modern archaeology, which is non-invasive, it's called geophys, geophysical examination of the soil without actually disturbing it.
It's like ground radar.
It's exactly that. And the Roman town extends north and eastwards away from where we're standing. And there's as much of the Roman town and the occupation on the outside of the walls, rather like Norwich has extended itself beyond the city walls. Come on, Rat. He's hoping to get back in the truck now because it's rather hot. So here we are in front of Clayton St Edmund Church. There's sort of Norman influences, and quite a bit of the footings are used, sort of robbed from the old Roman wall around the site, and so you can see the flint and various masonry of the church itself.
It's a fine old square tower church. Norfolk specialises in these things.
Yes.
With very finely knapped flint, actually. That's one of the better examples of the tower.
There's some superb ones in Norwich, right in the centre of Norwich, knapped flint, where the flints are knapped in a square fashion and laid with mortar in between them, and they're stunningly beautiful. So flint is a local material. There was obviously lots of it here, and there's some pictures explaining about some of the history of the church just on the outside of the churchyard. But it's of quite an interest to me. We're just stepping into the actual churchyard itself now. Now, there are around about 10,000 parish churches and churches in England alone, without Scotland and Ireland and Wales, so there's quite a number, and each churchyard is around an acre. Some of them are 2 acres, so the average is about 1.5 acres, and this particular one, Clayton St Edmund Churchyard, is about an acre. That's 3 chains and a perch long and 3 chains and a perch wide. So it's just over 66 yards by 66 yards.
The chain being 22 yards.
That's right, yes. And that gives you 4,840 square yards. And that's roughly what this churchyard is. But years ago, churchyards didn't really receive much attention from naturalists, but as wildflowers, the sort of old hay meadows got improved, modern varieties of grasses, which would be ploughed up year after year, and gradually churchyards, the importance of them for wildlife has been recognised. And I can see over in the distance there's lots of nettles not been mown. There's some tall plants in full flower at the moment.
There's the mullein over there.
That's Verbascum pulverulentum, the hoary mullein, and there's some growing right beside us here, right down the side. And well, I brought us here partly to explain the importance of them for wildlife, because there are literally, well, I think they've done some surveys in North Suffolk recently, and some of the churchyards there have 200 species of wildflowers in. It's absolutely astonishing. Some research has been done at the churchyard here. Some areas have been left all the way round, away from the gravestones, and look at the mullein over there. It's just stunningly beautiful, attracting butterflies and pollinators, and so there's a whole variety, and lots of nettles as well, which are good for butterflies to lay their eggs on.
So in other words, all these thousands of acres of churchyard all around the country,
yes,
they are a national asset for wildlife.
Yes, together, when you add it together, it's a shocking amount. It's probably 15,000 acres. Yeah, because the average, as I said, is about 1.5 acres per churchyard. But it's interesting for me because I've had a recent brush, if you like, with my mortality, having to go to Papworth and have a quadruple bypass and a new heart valve, and so it's made me be aware of where my final resting place is going to be, and we can walk down and see. It's not morbid or anything because it, has such a full and interesting life already, but when you get to 76 you realise you're over the halfway point, however you like to look at it. And so I determined to enjoy what's left and try and look after the wildlife. And I just love looking at the headstones. There is Bertie Swinge's grave there. He died in 1976. And that was my grandfather's employee who worked for nearly 60 years. He started off as a teenager on the farm here at Marks Hall and at Caister for Herbert Skinner, my grandfather. And just behind there's Claude Cogman's grave. He was a neighbouring farmer who lived right opposite me in 1974. And we had a lovely competition about growing new potatoes. And he dug his up, and mine were much larger because I'd cheated a bit and added fertiliser to them. And he said, I grew mine for my mouth, not yours. So we got on really well.
50 years on, the
Yes.
full story is told.
Yes. Here's somebody who worked at High Ash Farm, Harry Holden, and he died on the 1st of January. I took him, he'd retired, I took him a very large turkey for his Christmas dinner, and on the 24th of December. And when he'd finished it, he decided to, he had a heart attack and died. And so he was 78 at the time, which makes me very aware. So I spent 18 years working every day with Harry. He taught me so much, and he was very short, very rugged, and incredibly strong, and used to working with horses, but had transferred across to being the main tractor driver at High Ash.
Very much a past era of farming.
Yes.
Here.
My mother and father's grave here, Samuel David Skinner, and he died on the 29th of July 1980 on my daughter's first birthday. So a bit of a celebration in the week. We just come down and celebrate the wife, and then my mum's there as well. And so she was called Mary, quite a common Christian name back then. So, and the gravestone's already getting difficult to read. It's getting covered in various lichens, which are all part of that lovely tapestry. So we just moved down almost beside the church itself now. And here's the generation before. So this is my grandfather's grave, Herbert John, and his wife Rose Mary Skinner, and he died at 87, so he lived quite well. He retired quite early, and he had a daughter who never got married, called my Aunt Emily, and she looked after him in his latter years, and she's also there as well. And that's my father's sister, my Auntie Joyce, buried right beside. We're almost touching the church now, and that sort of makes you realise that life moves on, because I can remember all these people. They were quite important in my youth, I suppose, and it's also, that's where I'm going to be. I'm going in the same grave as my father and mother. My father was cremated, which is unusual for a farmer, and my mother's buried, so that's a double grave, so that will be my final spot. And I'm smiling because, I've had a terrifically full life, and I'm still here at the moment, and being able to explain that it's something that's not talked about very much. And just at the end there in the top corner is Mr. Corbell Warren's grave, who was the vicar of the parish. He's got a granite tombstone there, and he owned the whole Caister Hall estate, and which is rather unusual for the vicar of the parish, and he lived locally at Caister Hall, and he's interred there as well. So it's a lovely place, so both for wildlife and just incredibly quiet and peaceful as well. It's got a lovely atmosphere here. So we've been to lots of family celebrations, funerals and baptisms and weddings. My daughter got married here, and we brought her horse down as a surprise for Kate on her wedding day.
Not down the aisle, I hope.
No, not down the aisle, as far as the church door. So really interesting. So so great for wildlife and just a lovely place to rest. So I'm rather unusual in sort of being born, stayed my entire life within a few hundred yards of where we're standing, and going to finish up here as well. Whereas many modern families today are spread all over the world, and they don't have that sort of connection. And I just love that peaceful sound of the wood pigeon just in the trees right beside us, just cooing away. Just lovely place to be to finish your days, and the hoary mullein here in full flower right beside us, just absolutely stunning.
That's a long time until you have to worry about this.
Possibly. Anyway, I'm very happy and very content. I've had a very full life, and that brush, quite a close brush, because the surgeon said, you're lucky to be here. And I do feel that to this day. So yeah, it has no worries for me. When it's time to be here, I'm very happy. I know exactly where I'm going.
We found our way under a tree just to have a bit of shade, although the heat's not quite as fierce as it was yesterday, which is something of a relief. Thank you for all your emails, which continue to come in at a great rapid rate. Jill is listening in Fakenham. She says, last week you were talking about ant hills. I have one that I don't need or want in my border under a sedum which is looking a bit sick. Will it go away? If not, what can I do about it, or do I have to learn to love it? It's a fair old hump. I think I know what you're going to say, Chris.
Yes, well, you're very lucky to have that. And what's happened is they've built that up, perhaps over the last year, and there's a fair chance they won't use it next year. But some of the wood ant species have permanent sort of ant hills, and you might be stuck with it if it gets occupied again next year. Normally it's the product of one queen having been mated, and she starts a colony off, and the ants excavate the soil down there and make these mounds which warm up, and they use that for the larvae to help incubate the young ants. And of course, we have to realise ants are hugely important in the ecosystem, and they're also the main food of the largest species of UK woodpecker, the green woodpecker, who's got a specially elongated tongue which can go right down into the ant burrows, and it's kind of sticky and it's got a little barb on the end of the tongue. It all folds up behind at the back of the head, the tongue does, and it's about 100 millimetres long, which is 4 inches long.
In relation to the bird's body, that's enormous, isn't it?
It's absolutely incredible, isn't it? And they spear the ants down there and then pull them back and eat them, so it's quite an important part of the diet. And if you see them in the garden, they really are absolutely spectacular. We have 2 or 3 pairs nesting on High Ash Farm. That's the green woodpeckers. So if you can possibly live with your anthill, you can't really move them, so it's going to have to stay there, or you just learn to live with it and enjoy it.
Here's one from Sally Francis, who listens in Dumfries in the south of Scotland, and she says, my son tunes in from Singapore. I was walking down a remote country lane yesterday, 5:30 in the evening, near my home, when I spotted a young badger. A badger happily foraging on the grass verge. After a few minutes watching, I crept closer as he seemed quite unconcerned. Imagine my astonishment as he came towards me, almost coming up to my feet, checked me out, then trotted off, disappeared under the hedge of the house I was passing. The only explanation I can think of is that people at the house had been feeding them, and he'd become accustomed to humans. He was only half grown. Nevertheless, I think this is what Chris may describe as a red letter day.
Yes, exactly that. You are so lucky. What you're looking at, because we've got a picture of the badger.
Oh, there he is.
There he is. It's about half grown, only about a few feet away from the photographer there, and so it's probably very inexperienced. Now, badger's having a bit of a difficult time at the moment. The ground around even in Scotland, up in the north of the country, is so dry, there's a shortage of earthworms, which is a main part of the badger's diet, and beetles as well. And also, if people have got them accustomed to being fed in one of the local houses nearby, sort of badger-friendly household, which is good to hear, they get accustomed to people, and it was just checking you out to see if you had any food and then scurried off. But it's only about, 16 weeks old by the look of it, just over half grown.
A classic black and white head, and
Yes.
it looks quite coarse fur. I don't know.
No, that what you see when you see a badger, there's two coats of fur, and they're the guard hairs on the outside of the coat. And if you ever find a guard hair either tangled up in a piece of barbed wire on a thorn, it's like a Belisha beacon across. It's got black and grey bands all the way down the shaft of the fur itself, and then under that is quite a dense mat of fur quite close to the body, and that's what keeps the badger warm in really cold weather. So well done, that's a stunning moment. I'm quite envious.
Caroline Ray says, I was appalled to hear Chris apparently advocating for the use of larsen traps on a recent podcast. Whilst these traps are horrifyingly perfectly legal, the very genuine distress they cause to these intelligent corvids should be enough to deter anyone from using them.
Yep, so you're quite right, but I got asked in a recent podcast, which is where this question's arisen from, how does somebody control magpies? And to be fair to all the sides, there is a trap available which I don't approve of at all, and haven't used them at the farm here, to control magpies, because we don't do any control of predators or the prey. It's all left for nature to develop its own balance, if you like. And anyway, what I'll do is just brought this from the Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust, and it is about larsen traps, and it describes how to install them, how to use them. And what basically happens is it's a cage with a spring door at the top, and you can bait the cage with some eggs. If you put them in, then either a magpie or a carrion crow will come along, land on the top of the cage and drop into it to feast on the eggs, and then the little spring door shuts above the captive bird, and that bird is then kept, and it's moved to the next part of the cage which doesn't have a lid on it, and it's called a captive bird. After that point, it's called a call bird, to get it correctly. And they stay in there, and it's really distressing. So they call other birds. If it's got a mate, the mate will come and investigate what's wrong. That gets caught as well. And at that point, the second one is dispatched. And that goes on and on and on. An estate, in a shooting estate on the west side of Norwich, has 4 of these traps in operation. It's quite a large estate, and they have trapped and killed over 1,200 magpies and carrion crows. So it is a legal way of controlling them, but I don't approve because, as the email says, they're quite intelligent birds. You can use them for carrion crows as well. But there's several points on the list of items here, and one of them, I'm going to read it as the Norwich to London train shoots past us on the Liverpool Street line. Here it goes. The future of shooting depends on gamekeeping having a responsible image which treasures other aspects of the countryside and is sensitive to the feelings of the wider public. So there we are. It's a realisation that these traps are very, very controversial. The law says you can't tether a bird and then take it. So right at the end of it, the legal position on the use of call birds in cage traps is unclear. The Wildlife and Countryside Act in 1981 prohibits the use of tethered decoys for the purpose of taking wild birds. Our view is that if a call bird is not tethered and is therefore legal. However, this has not been tested in a court, and others may regard a caged bird as tethered. So there we are. And it also says in this press release that please don't put larsen traps within the public view, so they're always kept well out of sight, because it's so upsetting for people to see birds trapped in a cage, over some period of time, weeks or even months. The call bird is trapped in there. It is fed and watered.
Don't put them in public view so people can't see what's going on.
Exactly that.
So that really is
Yes.
a form of manipulation, isn't it?
It really is. So that's all contained in this, and it's been sent to me by one of the podcast listeners here, because I did mention it. And so I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to say that at High Ash Farm we don't control magpies. They control themselves. They're very territorial, and so are the carrion crows at the farm. And it's only usually carried out in order to maximise the number of game birds that can be shot. And also we don't shoot for sport, or what stopped it all here was an uncle who lived nearby. At the end of one of the shoots at the farm, said the vote of thanks at the end of the shoot, said, "Thank you, Chris, for a wonderful afternoon's fun." And that changed everything. And since then, nothing's been shot for sport or fun. So there we are.
So
thank you for that
fun
question.
Wasn't the word to use.
Yes, so thank you for that.
Yeah, but you don't approve of the larsen traps, but
no.
they do exist.
Yes, and
it's an untried part of law, and people do use them.
Yes.
So you've got to recognise that these things do exist.
Yes, they certainly do. But the alternative is poisoning. Some people put eggs out with a toxic liquid in them, something like strychnine or phostoxin, and that can poison birds like that, and that's much more indiscriminate. So thank you, Caroline. Just wanted a perfect excuse to explain the use of the larsen trap and why I mentioned it. I also have to be really careful, because I have inflicted quite a lot of damage to the shooting industry by getting Sainsbury's and Tesco's as well to stop selling grey partridge, which are legal game birds to shoot, but they have become red listed, and so I have affected it. And the same with woodcock as well. I've done quite a bit of work behind the scenes on that, but you're quite vulnerable when you stand out from the normal crowd and throw your arms up in protest, and it's a difficult and somewhat dangerous thing to do.
We're going to be back for another Countryside podcast at the same time next week. And of course, the full back catalogue is available now to listen to as well. You're around forever, Chris.
I hope so. So don't be depressed by visiting the churchyard. It's a time and a place of celebration. Lots of very full lives here, spent and working in the locality. And when I'm ready to go in the one at the end there, I shall be very happy to do so, whatever the circumstances.
Chris at highashfarm.com is the email address. highashfarm.com/podcast is the website, and you can go there to find out about helping out with the podcast, as many of you do, and it's all gratefully received. The donations keep us going.
Yes, yeah, it's a little bit on the tight side, so we're always looking to raise a little bit more if possible, but we'll be back next week. Thank you for listening.